Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. The Pyro preview is over now, and a lot of conclusions are being drawn from it, and I believe that many of them are making the same mistake, and that is that what we saw during the preview is what the ultimate Pyro experience will be like. And it won't, because first of all, players don't behave the same way during a limited number of 8-hour previews that will certainly be wiped than they would if there were being long-term profits to be made with the same playtime. For example, there may be short-term giggles in being a spawn camper, but no actual profit. The second is that there are important developments in Pyro that still have to be made and haven't, some because of lack of time, others because of core technologies that still need to be implemented. That is the subject of this video. What still needs to be added to Pyro? Now, I'm not going to make this a comprehensive list, but just a few that I want to point out. I'm sure they're like the others as you will think of, and I'd appreciate them in the comments. So first up are the things that we obviously need to have changed first. We need to have the jump point to Stanton be operating, and then in order for that to happen, and not to have 100 players on the servers be spread over 2 huge star systems, we need, at a minimum, static server meshing. The lack of server meshing is also why I think we were encouraged during the playtest to stick to the inner planets of the Pyro system. But there are also some economic implications of getting the jump tunnel working that I'll be getting into in a moment. The second thing that we need is a risk-reward rebalance. Pyro is supposed to be a riskier system, and it is. There has always been the case. I've sent a video quite a while ago that Pyro will be hard mode. There are risks of solar flares, there are risks of running into the crossfire of a gang battle. Places are just further apart and harder to land on. But the rewards, for example, from a delivery mission are currently identical to Stanton, which carries far less in terms of constant inherent risk. So a payment rebalance will need to happen, so that once the novelty is worn off, a sane person might still consider running deliveries to Pyro rather than Stanton. The third thing is going to be a little controversial, and that is consequences to actions. Now, some I suspect will scream that this is Pyro, it's a lawless system. And yes, it is a lawless system, but a lawless system isn't the same thing as anarchy. What Pyro is, at least any area that the gangs have interest over, is what is known as a mafia state.
Then I said to my wife, for justice, we must go to Don Corleone.
Despite the very specific name in the title, there are in fact many different examples and forms of mafia states. They may be warlords, cartels, clans, whatever, but the core of it is ruled by a criminal organization founded on violence and intimidation. There may not be any laws, courts, or etc. in the mafia state, but there are certainly rules to be followed and punishment meted out for those that challenge the gang's control. There is also an implied social contract in the mafia state. People give allegiance, and possibly money, to the gang in return for the gang protecting them from those that would harm them.
If you'd come to me in friendship, then the scum that ruined your daughter would be suffering this very day. And if by chance an honest man like yourself should make enemies, then he would become my enemies. And then they would fear you.
And never mind that the primary people that would harm them is the gangs themselves, but going about harming people yourselves in the gang's implied protection places under the gang's implied authority, and it will be seen as a challenge to the gang's position and would be dealt with severely. This is not to say that there can't be areas of genuine anarchy in Pyro, but they would have to be areas outside of any gang's territory and between people not of importance to any of the gangs. And honestly, if you just want to create mayhem without consequences, why not just play an arena commander? Why put all the extra overhead of a living, breathing universe and spending millions of dollars on systems of long-term persistence and reputation just in order to be played in a manner that clearly would make no nonsense in a living, breathing universe? But this raises the question, if there are no laws, no crime stat, and no klesher, what forms the consequences? Mostly an expansion of something we've already seen in Pyro, and that is if you do enough missions in opposition to a faction, your reputation with them decreases, and eventually they will create missions targeting you.
Give this to Clemenza. I want reliable people that aren't going to be carried away.
This needs to be expanded so that doing criminal things inside the territory of a gang or to gang members gets you the same negative reputation hit. But to really make this impactful, we need the upcoming bounty hunting version 2 mechanics, where you can actually get captured and transported and jailed. But transported where, if there is no Klesher? Well, we've already seen in progress models of outpost jail cells. So my supposition is that that is where you will wind up, in a well-defended outpost in a jail cell, and you have the following options of what to do. First would be to bribe the jailers to let you out. The bribe starts with being the same as your bounty and slowly decreases with time as they get bored with having to watch after you and feed you. And then the other option, to escape from jail with the help of your friends. There would be both stealthy and mass assault options for jailbreaks. Needless to say, this makes your own reputation with the gang even worse. This then segues into another thing that needs to be added to Pyro. Fourth, a reason to have skin in the game. Right now in Stanton, there really isn't any reason to throw in behind our Corp or Hurston or another other than to get better missions. And there's no reason to pick one faction over another. It's just a route to better missions. But if in Pyro messing with a gang member gets you a negative reputation and possibly a kidnapping mission against you, then what happens when you become a full member of that gang? To be logically consistent, if you as a player reach full gang membership and somebody messes with you, then you should have the right to ask for gang justice. Just like when you see press charges, you should see demand retribution option.
Be my friend. Godfather.
Good.
I would even go further and let you supplement the standard gang reward with your own money. Not only would this make the kidnapping mission even more enticing, but also the bribe to get you out of jail, since it's based on the reward amount, and the reward in their penalty of attacking you is higher. This will accomplish something quite special in an MMO, to pick a side in the world and a reason and benefit to do so. It also gives something else, a reason to wonder about who it is in your crosshairs. What will it cost you to pull the trigger? Finally, number 5. Once the jump point to Pyro gets open, what goes through it? Obviously, there's not much of an industrial base in Pyro, and apart from the folks on top of the Mafia state, very little wealth. This presents a challenge for the economics team to create believable trade routes. So what in the real world provides a template for that economic exchange? Poor, isolated countries with barely functioning social orders tend to produce low-cost raw materials of dubious ethical standards, conflict minerals, blood diamonds, cocoa and coffee produced using exploitation practices, etc. Not large quantities, mind you, but pyrotechnic amalgamate collapsed not from the depletion of the planets, but the expenses and difficulty of operating a legitimate industrial-scale mining economy in the conditions of Pyro. So small quantities of minerals at very low cost to be worth the extra travel time. Meanwhile, what flows back in the other direction? Well, in a world where people are barely surviving on duck slugs, grubs, and fried rats on a stick, how valuable, for those who could afford it, would a torpedo burrito be? It's kind of a cliche amongst the world's corrupt leaders of the poorest countries having an obsession with luxury goods. Think about Saddam Hussein's palaces and Imelda Marcos' shoe closet. Bringing in a few SCU of luxury goods from Stanton might be very lucrative run as well. So expect things like processed food, distilled spirits, stims, and medical supplies to carry a premium price for Pyro, but again, in low quantities, since only the elite will be able to buy them at all. That's my short list of things that either must or should be added to Pyro to make it consistent, logical, and functional. And now for an update on our giveaways. With the Hull C giveaway complete, congratulations, Mount Booster. Now we have our IA Week ship giveaway coming just up for the winner's choice of either the Galaxy Complete, the Master Modular Mining Moving Medical Machine, or the brand new Big Box Bargain Bazaar, aka the Merchantman, or a $100 Steam Store credit. Just be a member and be entered automatically, or subscribe and comment, including the secret word. And the secret word for this video is what the form of governance in Pyro is called. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guides.
Someday, and that day may never come, I'll call upon you to do a service for me. But until that day, accept this justice as a gift on my daughter's wedding day.
Grazie.